Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today we're going to tackle something, well, it's pretty big, actually, like really big. How about that? We're looking at belief systems.
Ooh, yeah. Belief systems. That's a wide-ranging topic.
And it's not just like religion or anything. It's broader, right?
Definitely.
Broader. We're talking about, we've got some great stuff to work with for this deep dive, by the way. There are a few, like, super in-depth academic articles, and we've got a section from a cultural anthropology textbook. Really interesting.
Always love a good textbook.
And then for something, kind of different, we have some YouTube videos in the mix. But anyway, the point is, it's like how people see the world, right? Their morals, their values, how they think things work.
Yeah. The assumptions, the frameworks they use to make sense of everything.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to unpack today. How these belief systems shape civilizations, but also, get this, how they still, like, echo in our lives today,
Definitely echoes, reverberations. It's all connected, right?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, first things first. What exactly are we talking about when we say belief systems?
Okay, well, you're right. It's more than just religion. Think of it as, like, the invisible scaffolding of a culture.
Okay. Invisible scaffolding. I like that.
It shapes how a whole group of people see the world. Like you said, their values, morals, even just like the basic assumptions about, how things work, how the world works.
So it's not just what they believe, but it impacts, how their society structure, their everyday lives, all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the lens they see reality through, the lens they make decisions through. Like Mackenzie Price, in one of the articles, talks about how even something as simple as, sensing when people are fighting or flirting is rooted in anthropological understanding.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it's not just intuition. There's a whole, like, cultural framework influencing how we read those social cues.
Yeah. Because we learn those cues from, like, our culture, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the textbook you sent, the cultural anthropology one, it digs into how people, like, create meaning in their lives.
Yeah.
And belief systems. They're, like, the foundation for all of that.
Okay, so belief systems, the invisible scaffolding, the lens. How do they hold civilizations together? Or, like, what's the glue?
Right. The glue. Well, let's look at a specific example. Ancient China.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, constant warfare, chaos everywhere. This was like the warring states, period. People were desperate for, like, stability, for order.
That sounds intense.
It was. So along comes Confucianism.
Okay, Confucianism, I've heard of that.
Right. And it really provided this, like, way forward, a path to harmony. Like, it emphasized things like hierarchy, obedience, being kind to others.
Benevolence.
Yes, benevolence, exactly. And these values, they became, like, deeply embedded in Chinese society, especially in how the government worked. Think of it like a school, maybe.
Wow, school. Yeah.
You've got, like, the emperor at the top, like the principal, and then all these officials below, like teachers and stuff, all working together to keep things running smoothly. It's a bureaucracy.
Oh, right. Like a pyramid structure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Confucianism wasn't just, abstract ideas. It actually had a huge, like, practical impact on how the government functioned, how society was structured.
That's like those values really shaped the whole system.
They did. For example, like filial piety, respecting and obeying your elders. That was, like, central to Confucianism.
Right. Family values.
But it wasn't just about family. It also applied to the emperor. He was seen as, like, the father of the nation.
So everyone had to obey him.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It created this system where obedience to authority was just, like, ingrained in people. And that contributed to, social and political stability.
Wow. So even something like respecting your parents, it had these, like, ripple effects throughout society.
Exactly. It's all connected. And this whole link between belief systems and social order, it's not just a China thing. Let's hop over to South Asia. Look at Hinduism.
Oh, Hinduism.
Right.
With all the gods and goddesses.
Right. And reincarnation. It's a really complex, ancient belief system.
For sure.
One of the key ideas in Hinduism is dharma.
Yeah.
It's like duty, doing the right thing. The idea that fulfilling your role in society, whatever that role is super important for your spiritual growth.
So your place in society, it's tied to your spiritual journey. That's pretty deep.
Exactly. And this idea of dharma, it actually reinforced the caste system.
The caste system.
Yeah. Dividing society into those groups with specific roles and responsibilities.
Oh, right. So, like, where you were born determined your whole life.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And your spiritual progress, your ability to move up in the cycle of reincarnation. was tied to fulfilling your dharma within your caste.
Whoa, that's intense.
It is a very powerful way to maintain social order for sure, but of course not everyone agreed with that system. Yeah. Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, he actually came from a Hindu background.
Oh, interesting.
But he challenged that whole idea that your spiritual enlightenment was tied to your caste. He said, nope, there's another way, an alternative path to liberation that's open to everyone. Didn't matter what your social position was.
So even within a single belief system, like Hinduism, you had these debates, these challenges, and that leads to new movements and new ways of thinking.
Precisely. And it reminds us that even these massive belief systems that seem so, solid, they're always evolving, always changing, just like the societies they're a part of.
Which actually reminds me of something else.
What's that?
Well, the sources you gave me, they talk about subcultures and countercultures and how those can shake things up,
Oh, absolutely. They're like the spice in the cultural stew. Add some flavor, some variety, maybe even a little heat sometimes. It's how cultures stay dynamic.
Okay, so before we dive into all of that, let's I want to shift gears for a second.
Right.
Let's talk about Islam.
Okay. Fascinating belief system, for sure.
Yeah. It's really interesting how it spread across so much of the world.
It did. It transcended tribal identities in Arabia.
Right, Arabia. It started there, right?
It did. And back then, the region was super fragmented, all these different tribes always fighting with each other. But Islam, it brought them together under one faith.
Oh, so their belief in one God was more important than their tribal loyalties.
Exactly. It broke down those barriers and fostered a sense of community, and it extended way beyond traditional boundaries.
So you're saying monotheism played a big role in Islam's spread?
It did. It provided this unifying force, this shared identity that people could rally around.
Okay, that makes sense. So how did it spread so far so fast?
Well, there's another piece to the puzzle here. Muhammad, the founder of Islam, he was a merchant.
Oh, a merchant. So he was traveling around.
Exactly. And as he traveled, he shared his beliefs.
Yeah.
And Islam, it naturally became woven into those existing trade routes.
Makes sense.
So it wasn't just goods that were being exchanged along those routes, but also ideas, cultural practices. And that led to the rise of all these powerful new states and empires. I mean, Islam spread across huge distances, from Spain all the way to Indonesia.
It's amazing how religious beliefs could be so intertwined with, economics and trade.
It is. And it just goes to show how belief systems can shape the course of history in all these unexpected ways. And it gets even more interesting when you start to look at how those seemingly stable civilizations that we've been talking about, they're constantly evolving and changing, even today.
No, right? Nothing stays the same forever. It's even though we're talking about ancient China and all that, it feels so relevant to what's happening today.
Absolutely. Because, those same dynamics are still at play. Cultures are always in motion, and belief systems are always part of that movement. And that's what makes it also fascinating to study, right?
Yeah, it's even these big belief systems we've been talking about, like Confucianism or Hinduism, they're not just frozen in time.
No, not at all. They evolve.
Yeah.
Just like the societies they're a part of. They shift, they adapt.
It's okay, think of it like different kinds of music, right?
Music. Okay, I'm listening.
So you have these big genres, I don't know, rock and roll or classical music. Those are the main belief systems. But then within those, you have all these subgenres.
Right, subgenres. Within rock, you have punk rock, heavy metal, all that.
Exactly. And those are the subcultures. They share some of the core beliefs of the bigger genre, but they also have their own unique twist, their own flavor.
Okay, I see what you're getting at. So subcultures, they're like those smaller groups within a larger society with their own specific values and practices. What about those hipsters?
Oh, perfect example. Hipsters with their vintage clothes, their indie music, their
obsession with artisanal toast.
Exactly. They're a subculture, and they coexist alongside the mainstream culture, adding to the diversity,
It's like they're adding a new instrument to the orchestra.
I like that. But countercultures, those are different, right?
Yeah, countercultures are more they're not just adding a new instrument. They're trying to change the whole song.
Oh, okay. That's a good way to put it.
They're actively challenging the dominant norms and values of a society. They want to shake things up, create real change. Think about the 1960s counterculture in the U.S.
Oh, yeah, the 60s. Anti-war protests, the civil rights movement, all that.
Exactly. They questioned everything. Traditional family structures, the role of government, everything was up for debate. They embraced alternative lifestyles, often associated with psychedelic drugs. And they really pushed the boundaries of what was considered acceptable.
Yeah, like they wanted to rewrite the whole score.
They did. And you know what? Some of the values they fought for, like environmentalism, gender equality, those are much more widely accepted today.
It's true. It's like their music eventually became part of the mainstream.
It did. It's a great example of how belief systems, even those that seem radical at the time, can have a lasting impact on society. And it's not just about subcultures and countercultures. The sources you sent, they also talk about these broader mechanisms of cultural change, like invention, discovery, and what was the other one?
Diffusion.
Right, fusion. So invention, that's pretty straightforward. It's like creating something new, right?
Yeah, like think about the printing press or the internet. These inventions, they completely change the way information is shared, how we communicate. Huge impact on how we think and how we live.
Okay, and discovery. That's more about uncovering something that already exists, but we didn't know about it before.
Exactly, like finding a new species of animal in the rainforest, or a new planet in a distant galaxy.
Or a new element, like, I don't know, unobtainium or something.
Sure, unobtainium, why not? And then there's diffusion. That's about the spread of cultural traits from one group to another. And that's happening all the time, in all sorts of ways. Like how we have food from all over the world available to us now. Sushi, tacos, pizza.
Exactly. Our taste buds are a testament to cultural diffusion. And it's not just food. Think about music, fashion, language. It's all constantly mixing and mingling.
And that's how cultures stay dynamic and interesting, right? They're constantly borrowing from each other, adapting, evolving.
Absolutely. It's this beautiful, messy process of exchange and transformation. And it reminds us that cultures aren't these isolated, static things. They're fluid, interconnected, always in motion.
So we've talked about how belief systems hold societies together, how they can spark change, and how cultures are constantly evolving. But there's this big question that I keep coming back to.
Oh, what's that?
Are humans inherently good or bad?
Ah, the age-old debate. And your sources, they actually delve into this by looking at evidence from the Paleolithic period, the time before agriculture when humans were hunter-gatherers.
I always picture that time as like peaceful humans living in harmony with nature.
Yeah, it's a romantic image, isn't it? But some studies suggest that, that murder rates in Paleolithic societies may have been pretty high, maybe even higher than in some modern societies.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
That's not what I expected. But does that mean we're all just naturally violent?
It's not that simple. Remember, those Paleolithic societies, they were vastly different from ours. Resources were scarce, competition was fierce.
So maybe violence was more about survival.
Possibly. But there's also evidence of cooperation, altruism, compassion in those early societies. Humans are complex. We have the capacity for both good and bad. It's this duality that makes us who we are.
It's like we have these two sides to our nature, and they're always in tension, so it's not a simple answer.
Nope, not at all. And that's what makes it such a fascinating question to explore, because it forces us to really think about what it means to be human, what drives our behavior, what shapes our choices. And those are questions that we're still grappling with today, thousands of years later.
It's like we're still trying to figure out the lyrics to our own song.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. It's an ongoing process of discovery.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about civilizations, subcultures, cultural change, the whole good versus evil thing.
Phew. It's been quite a journey.
It has. But before we wrap things up, I just want to make sure we highlight a few key takeaways for our listeners, bring it all home.
Good idea.
What are your top takeaways?
Okay, so first and foremost, belief systems. They are way more than just religion. They're the invisible forces that shape how we see the world, our values, our morals, everything.
I think that's a great point. And those beliefs, they've shaped the course of history in some pretty amazing ways.
Right, like they've influenced the rise and fall of empires, the way we organize our societies, even how we think about ourselves and our place in the universe.
Absolutely. It's mind-boggling when you really think about it. And we've also seen how cultures are constantly evolving, right? Driven by new ideas, new discoveries, all this amazing exchange between different groups. Yes, it's like this constant dance of borrowing and adapting, which makes our world so much richer and more interesting.
I totally agree. And then there's that whole question about human nature, which, that's something we could probably debate forever and still not have a definitive answer.
Right. It's like, are we good? Are we bad? Are we a little bit of both?
Exactly. But what's important is that we keep asking those questions. We keep trying to understand ourselves and each other better.
Because ultimately, that's what it's all about, right? Understanding, empathy, connection. That's what helps us make sense of the world and our place in it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.
Wow, that was a lot. I feel like we've traveled through time and space exploring all these fascinating belief
I
systems.
know, right? It's amazing to see how it all connects. From ancient China to the 60s counterculture. It's like this giant web of ideas shaping and reshaping the world.
It really makes you think,
Mhm.
about like how those ancient beliefs are still relevant today and how we're all part of this ongoing story.
Exactly. It's not just history,
Yeah.
you know? It's about understanding ourselves, the choices we make, the values we hold.
So, for all you deep divers out there listening, let's bring it back to you for a second.
Okay, yeah, good idea.
Think about the belief systems that are shaping your life right now. I mean, they might be beliefs you've inherited from your family, your community.
Or from the wider culture, right?
Exactly. Or maybe you've actively sought out and embraced certain beliefs that resonate with you
Either way, those beliefs, whether you're consciously aware of them or not, they're shaping your experience of reality. They influence your decisions, how you see the world.
and how you interact with others. Like it's all connected.
It is. And remember that whole debate we had about
Yeah.
human nature. Are we inherently good or bad?
Oh, yeah. That's a tough one. Where do you land on that, by the way?
Well, I think we're complex creatures,
Yeah.
capable of both great and terrible things. It
Oh.
depends on so many factors, you know?
I agree. And that's why it's so important to stay curious, keep exploring, keep questioning.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to challenge your own beliefs, even the ones that feel really fundamental to who you are.
Because sometimes, by stepping outside of our comfort zones, by encountering different perspectives, we can learn so much about ourselves and the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Keep diving deep, everyone. And thanks for joining us on this incredible journey through the world of belief systems. Until next time.
See you in the next deep dive.